Hi everyone! I hope that you guys are doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. As you can see, it's sunny outside today, so I'm really excited because it's going to be warm. Well, warmish compared to where it was before. In this one, I want to speak to you guys about how INFJs create these imaginary scenarios in our heads, and then we play it out in our heads and we play it out in our minds, and we kind of do a whole spiel in our head. And by the time we get to the end of it, we realize we've wasted hours and hours on it, perhaps, or even minutes or whatever it might be. And then it actually happens, and it doesn't happen like that, and we're just confused about why did we waste all that time on making up that scenario in our head, and why did we waste so much energy on imagining a terrible outcome when actually it happened perfectly fine. Actually, I do this a lot. I've noticed I'm trying not to do that anymore, because what I'm doing is that I'm really trying to observe when I go into these random modes where I'm spending hours and hours sitting there thinking about something and thinking about how it's going to play out, but in a negative way. It's okay if I do it sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to go here and it's going to be great and blah, blah. If I do it in a positive manner and I'm thinking that's going to go in a nice way, in a positive way, that's okay. I can spend hours and hours on that. But of course, that's not really that interesting, and that's not something I do. So for example, when I was coming back to Canada and I was having a little bit of time, a difficult time getting flights and all that stuff from Thailand back to Toronto, obviously because of the coronavirus. And so I was sitting there, and instead of imagining, I got a flight on Air Canada, and I was like, all right, cool, I got the flight, it doesn't seem like it's canceled, everything's gonna be great. But instead of sitting there thinking, all right, cool, everything's gonna be awesome, I'm gonna get on the flight, it's gonna be really comfortable, there's gonna be no one sitting next to me, so I'm gonna be able to stretch out my legs, and I'm gonna have a great meal, and I'm gonna sleep through the flight, and I'm gonna get to my parents, and they're gonna pick me up, and it's gonna be awesome, etc., etc. Yeah. Instead of imagining the scenario like that, obviously, as an INFJ, as a person who thinks about worst case scenarios, a person that wants to be prepared for everything by imagining the worst, which is not a good preparation for it, I must tell you, because you're not going to be prepared for it. In fact, you're going to cause yourself anxiety. You're going to be worrying about it, and you're going to literally you're killing yourself from the inside out through stress and anxiety. And so obviously, as I sat there, I was like, all right, so how is it going to go? In my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to get on the flight. And then this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And I had a whole scenario, a whole kind of thing built up in my head, which of course did not work out like that at all. It was perfectly fine. It was perfectly amazing, actually, because everything worked out really well. And I got on the flight, and I got bumped up so that I had no one sitting next to me, and I was able to stretch out my legs, and it was as easy as it could be. Instead of wasting my time imagining the worst, I could have just been relaxed and chilled out and just did my work, or just read a book, or did something else with that beautiful time that I had. But instead, of course, I was sitting there and wasting it on nonsense, wasting on imagining things that would never happen. Now, some of you guys are probably going to be like, well, but what if it did happen that way? And then what if you were not prepared for it because you didn't imagine the worst? And a lot of INFJs, and I know I do this as well, so I'm not berating you guys. A lot of us, what we do is that we imagine that by imagining all of the worst case scenarios, all the terrible things that could happen, we're kind of prepared for it in our heads. So if it does happen, yay, I'm already prepared for it. The unfortunate thing about this, as I said, is that 99.9% of the time, the worst case scenario doesn't come true. In fact, not even close. It ends up perfectly fine, no problems at all. But we waste all this time, as I said, on imagining the worst case scenario. Instead of actually just living our lives and enjoying ourselves, being chilled out and relaxing, we waste and spend a lot of our time and energy and psychic energy, spiritual energy, mental energy, physical energy on imagining these worst case scenarios, right? Not only that we're wasting time, energy, blah, 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 but also we're also wasting our relationships that way. I think a lot of times or ruining our relationship. A lot of times I'll be sitting there, and I did this a lot when I was in my relationship in the past. I haven't been in a partner romantic relationship in a while. But when I was in it, I would just sit there and imagine the worst case scenario. Oh, he's out there and he's cheating on me, or he's with someone else. And I imagined that by doing that, if it did happen, if he did end up cheating on me, I was completely prepared for it. I was totally fine. Yeah, I'm prepared for it. I've already gone through it in my head. The interesting thing, or the sad thing, was that he obviously never cheated on me. He was a great guy. He was good to me. But instead of actually doing that, and instead of imagining that he's doing good things and caring about me and loving me, I imagined the worst. Not only did that ruin the relationship for me in that moment when I was imagining it and I was thinking, oh my God, he's so terrible, I can't believe he would cheat on me, when he had never done it. I was just imagining it. But also when I was with him, I always spent my energy thinking about the worst case scenario. I wasn't able to actually enjoy the relationship because I was spending all of my energy and time on thinking, oh yeah, he's probably cheating on me. Oh yeah, he probably doesn't love me anymore. Oh yeah, he probably doesn't care about me anymore. And the reality was not based on it at all. Again, ruining my relationship because I'd imagine all these negative things, and then I'd be like ruining my relationship because I'd have conversations with him about it. And he'd be like, what? What are you talking about? I've never cheated on you, or I've never done this up for you, or this has never come up. Why are you talking about it now? And so little by little that chips away at the relationship, obviously, and then the relationship fails because of a lack of trust. That is something that we don't want. I know I've done a video on this where we ruin relationships by doing that. We do many other things as well to ruin relationships, but this is one of the main things that we do, is that we imagine these scenarios that have never existed, that will never exist, that will never come to fruition. We ruin our health, we ruin our time, we waste our energy. We just kind of all around is a negative thing, right? I mean, I can't think of any good thing that comes out of it. Even if you say to me that worst case scenarios have saved your life in the past because you're like, oh, well, maybe probably my car has a flat tire and I should go early. Or, they're probably going to come early, so I should go early to this interview. Or, it's better if I go early because I might miss my train. A lot of times I wonder how much of it is actually the self-fulfilling prophecy where we're like, yeah, I'm going to miss my train, so I better hurry. And then we miss our train. Because we're imagining it, we're thinking it, perhaps we're actually making it happen by thinking about it over and over and over and over and over again, right? So really, I don't know, how much of that is self-fulfilling prophecy or how much of it comes true because we think so much about it. But in general, isn't it better in general to think about positive things or to think about things working out? Because if you look back at your life, I would imagine you would say that 90% of the time or more, things have actually worked out perfectly, or in fact, better than perfectly, better than you ever imagined it could. And if you look at the negative scenarios, a lot of times they happen in a way that you never imagined. So you imagine, oh, this is how it's going to go, and this is what's going to happen, and it turns out to be completely different, right? It turns out to be completely different from what you imagined, and you weren't prepared for it. And so all that time you really wasted actually, on thinking about a scenario and imagining it and being like, oh, I'm preparing for it, didn't actually prepare you for it. So again, it was a waste of time and energy and all that. In general, as I imagine, or as you can imagine, I'm telling you that we should try as much as possible. There's a should, we should try at least, to imagine the positive way that things would work out rather than negative. And then if we do notice that our mind is kind of going in that direction of, oh yeah, I think it's going to be really, really terrible and this is how it's going to go, really try to pull yourself back. I'm really, as I said, I'm trying as much as possible in my own way. When my mind does go off into these negative scenarios, I try very much to be like, all right, stop it now. Right? Stop doing that to yourself. Do something else. Go read a book, go for a walk, change your physiology, change your psychology, but don't go into this mode of thinking about negative things because it's not useful. It's not useful in any shape or form that I can imagine. I'm sure maybe some of you will come up with some scenarios where it might be useful, but that has to be the minority. In the majority of the cases, imagining the worst scenario and then arguing with that person or in your head is not helpful. I actually posted this somewhere, and a person was like, I actually do this. I imagine the worst case scenario, and then, I'm with the person, I'm arguing with that person in my head, and I imagine the argument, how it would go. And then I'm with the person and I'm having that conversation, and they can get confused between the two worlds. They have no idea what was the real conversation or how that's going, or what was the imaginary conversation. What did I say in the imaginary conversation? Did I say it in the real conversation? And so the two worlds kind of convolute because, as you guys know, neurochemistry-wise or neurology-wise, your brain doesn't know the difference between an imagined scenario and a real scenario. If you've looked at studies on it, if you actually just imagine yourself lifting weights or you actually lift weights, it has the same effect on your muscles and your brain. Your brain structure changes accordingly. Doesn't matter if you just imagined it or you actually lifted the weights, right? And so in the same situation, if you're imagining all these negative scenarios in your head, your brain is going to be affected by it, and you're going to create all these neural pathways of negativity. and you're not going to be able to get out of it eventually. And I know that's very true for me, because I notice that the more negative thoughts that I have and the more constantly I go towards those negative thoughts, it's harder for me to go into a positive mode after that, because it's so easy just to stay in that negative mode, because those neural pathways have been built up, and they've just been built up so properly. They're so strong, right? In general, as I said, try as much as possible to pull yourself back from this negative scenario, imagining, thinking, overthinking. It's not useful to you, to the other person, to the scenario, to the situation, to the world in general. Do not do it to yourself, and do not do it to someone else, because you're going to ruin your relationship with the other person who you're imagining, or you're going to ruin the situation that you're in by overthinking and overimagining it. Really, I'm telling you, the best thing for us as INFJs is to stop doing this to ourselves. If you guys have any questions about this or any comments, please put them into the post below or comment below, and I shall do a further video. Or if you have, scenarios to share with me, or any suggestions, then I'd love to hear that as well. Again, thank you so much for being on my channel. I really appreciate it, and I shall see you guys the next time around. Bye for now.